It is our pleasure to welcome one of the candidates in the mayoral primary, New York City mayoral primary race, Andrew Yang. He's a former candidate for president in 2020, running on the Democratic side. Of course, primary day, June 22nd, but of course, early voting open now in New York City, but y'all knew that. Andrew, thanks so much for the time today. We appreciate it.
It's great to be here, Maggie. Thanks for having me. I'm on the fan. It's very exciting.
Yes. No, you're a legit sports fan. You don't have to fake it like some other politicians. You are legit. You've been tweeting about sports for many, many, many years. We know you're diehard. So when the mayoral debate happens at the same time as Game 5 of the Knicks and Hawks, like, how did you do that? Did you tape the game, go home and watch? Like, how did you navigate that?
I saw the schedule and was sad, Maggie. That's really what happened. But I did think to myself, there's no way most of my friends are watching this debate because they'll be tuned into Game 5 like I would have been. Even my closing statement, I said, I hope the Knicks are winning. And then I found out that they were not winning, and I was sad again. I really thought that series was going to go 6. I thought it was going to go 7. I thought the Knicks and the Hawks were going to be evenly matched. I was stunned that Trae Young played as well as he did. I thought in the playoffs, you'd be able to control him better. But hats off to him and the Hawks.
Now, Andrew, where are you in your fandom?
Let's clear this up.
Yeah, are you a Knicks fan or are you a Nets fan?
I am a Nets fan in the sense that the two teams played each other. I would be rooting for the Nets. I've built some relationships with people in the organization over there. They are so philanthropic. I don't think they get enough credit. They paid everyone who worked for Barclays as if the events were still going on all through last year. But I grew up a hardcore Knicks fan, Ewing, Starks, Oakley, Mason, Harper, like that entire crew, and was an enormous Knicks fan all the way through Insanity. And I want you all to imagine being a hardcore Knicks fan and then having an Asian guy play point guard for a fan like me, where it was like the greatest time in sports fandom. And then when we dumped Jeremy Lin for money, I just was like, I can't do this anymore. So that's my tortured history, Moose. I'm not sure how many fans can relate to it.
All right, of that group of Knicks, and I grew up a lifelong Knicks fan, still a Knicks fan, Andrew, right? But of that group that came close to winning a title, those Ewing days, right? Of that, Harper, Ewing, Starks, Oakley, who's your favorite Knick of that group?
I'd have to say Starks. He seemed like he overcame so much. He played in what was
mine as well, Andrew.
And that iconic dunk, oh my gosh. I remember that happening in real time, and we were all just freaking out when he dunked on half the Bulls. And I don't know if people remember this, Moose, but I remember the next possession, he tried to do it again. I don't know how many people remember this. like the next possession down the floor, he drives hard and tries to dunk on them again. And then, of course, they put him on his butt. Like, they just fouled the crap out of him. But that really left an impression on me. I was like, Starks wasn't even satisfied with his one super dunk. He just was like, I'm going to do this again the next time down the floor.
Yeah, I mean, that's the ultimate heat check, right? Andrew Yang is our guest. He's obviously a candidate for mayor of New York City. So I hate to bring this up, but I got some receipts that I got to bring up, right? Because you tweeted March of 2019, breaking up with the Knicks was one of the best decisions of my life. I feel freer, right? So that's years after Linsanity. Do you remember what it was that made you send that tweet that day?
I had a back and forth with some Knicks fans after the free agency bust of that year.
Yeah.
Where, if you remember, we traded Kristaps Porzingis away, and everyone was like, "Oh, we're going to sign all these free agents," and then we signed a bunch of people to 1-year contracts, and and then it was being sold as if like, "Oh, this was the plan." I was like, "This wasn't the plan." So I think that was what drove me, where I did feel like I had a higher level of detachment. Whereas before, I used to live and die with every Knicks signing, like every second round draft pick, like all of it. And then I just felt like I had a bit more distance.
Yeah, no doubt. It turns out that Julius Randle ended up being a good signing for them. It just took a while to reveal itself, and Julius really remade his entire body, his entire game, everything. Andrew Yang is our guest. So do you ever come across Dolan?
I have never met Jim Dolan. One thing I've said very consistently about him that you have to appreciate as an owner is he's not afraid to spend. Like they haven't cut any pennies when it comes to trying to put a competitive team out there. His problem has been empowering the right people to run the org, but it seems like they've hit on a winning team with Leon Rose and Tom Thibodeau. So I'm excited about that. And I admit at the time I was skeptical. I was like, that this seems like a kind of a win now team. And I didn't think the Knicks were ready to win now, but it turns out really good coaching and having a player like Julius Randle who's willing to work hard. Last year, I was not a Randle fan, I guess, last year. Last year, I was concerned about RJ Barrett, too. You look at him and be like, is this guy going to learn to shoot? like, what's his game going to be? But they both improved immensely this year and gave a lot of fans a lot of hope.
Because you're sorry, Moose, just one follow-up. Because you're kind of like, you're in the startup world, the tech world, you start off as a lawyer, you went into the tech world, that's kind of where you sort of came up, and then obviously have launched this career now into politics. Like, have you ever heard from any of your friends in the tech business about a possible, trying to make a run to buy the Knicks?
I have some very wealthy friends who are very big sports fans that if the Knicks were ever to be made available, I think would have an acute interest. But that's a lot of very wealthy people because the Knicks are a crown jewel. I'm not even sure you could put a price on it. It's one of a kind. The Nets sold for a lot. And objectively, you would have to say the Knicks are a more appealing franchise, in terms of the history and the rest of it. Though, the Nets are on the up and up. And obviously, I think they may win the title this year. But yeah, I have friends.
I think there would be a lot of people that would be interested in buying the Knicks. Andrew, the Nets get their series going tomorrow night against the Milwaukee Bucks. When you look at what do you think an NBA title would mean for the Brooklyn Nets and for this city?
Okay, I'm a Nets fan. But I have to say that the way this team has come together and competed. It's interesting because all of the young players that the Nets developed that you root for, like Karis LeVert and Jared Allen, had to get traded away to put together the super team. You know what I mean? and any team would have done it. Like any team that had that set of choices would have done the exact same thing. And we've got a great chance to win. But I do understand people who look at it and are like, okay, like this isn't the same kind of team building process you're used to. They put in the time. I mean, they had no future, no draft picks. It was really a paragon it was an example of just excellent management, excellent team building. Sean Marks, Kenny Atkinson, they built from nowhere. And they just found diamond in the rough after diamond in the rough. And then they traded in all the diamonds in the rough for James Harden and the rest of it. But it would mean a lot to a lot of people. I think they've got a great chance at winning the title this year. This series against the Bucks, in my opinion, may determine the champion. Because if you look at it, I think the Nets or the Bucks would be favored, in my opinion, against the Sixers and might be favored against the West.
Yeah, especially now with Embiid having that knee injury. LeBron got eliminated in the Lakers last night. You look at the Clippers, they're facing elimination against the Dallas Mavericks. Andrew, you personally, though, you grew up a huge Knicks fan. You're now a Net fan, frustrated.
Yep.
You personally, Brooklyn beats the Phoenix Suns in the NBA Finals. Does it feel just as good for you as if the Knicks had won a title in the early 90s, if they did?
I don't think anything can replace your childhood allegiance to a certain team. The Knicks used to be like a metaphor for how I thought my life was going. And I have to say, it was a pretty good stretch because they made the playoffs every year from whatever it was, like 92 to 99. So I was like, my life's going great. I was in the Garden during Larry Johnson's 4-point play and, the place was pandemonium. So I don't think anything could have. I remember, when we lost to the Rockets, in '94. I mean, how difficult that was. So I'm not going to argue that a Nets championship now would mean as much as a Knicks championship would have meant to me in '94, '99.
Andrew Yang is our guest. He is running for mayor of New York City. He's a diehard New York sports fan. We'll get to some more questions and have a few more minutes with you, Andrew. We appreciate it. Okay, if you're elected mayor and the Nets win the title. Two big ifs, but let's all works out for everybody involved. What can you give them? Like, can you give them keys to the city? Can you start naming stuff after, James Harden, maybe ceremonial stuff? Can you rename the Brooklyn Bridge after, Kevin Durant? Like, what would you do?
We would, well, we'd have a parade. That's for
course.
sure. The parade, the parade might beat me, to the punch, given that I wouldn't take office until next year. But then we would have all sorts of events and ceremonies for them. Yeah, let's co-name some streets after some of the people that have brought the title to Brooklyn. I'd have them to Gracie. We could do sort of like a visit if they were into it. Not as fun as the White House, but who knows? Maybe some of them or their families would have an interest in Gracie. But I'd love for the Nets to win this championship for all of us. And again, I think they've got a really good shot at it. You're getting me all the more excited about becoming mayor, because as mayor, I'm going to get to hang out with a bunch of my favorite teams, favorite players, build some relationships. Maybe my kids will, maybe some of it will rub off on my two boys. Maybe this is very exciting. Everyone should run for mayor if you're a sports fan, because then, you get to have a blast.
Andrew, you've run for president, you've run for mayor. You're running for mayor now. What's the biggest difference when you're running for those two offices? Obviously, distinctly different, but New York City is, the heartbeat on the East Coast here, running for president. What's the biggest difference there?
Well, right now, New York's in a really, really wounded state still. I mean, we have to face facts. People are concerned about public safety, about jobs, about homelessness, about trash. And so this is a more urgent situation than when I was running. I was running against Trump, so that was urgent too in my own mind. But I'm also in a different position where I was never a leading contender for the presidency. Thank you to everyone who supported me. But, I never quite reached that level. Whereas in this race, I have been a leading contender, and the crisis is very, very real. It's around us all the time. I walk out onto the street with my family and you see the problems and they're not getting better. So the experiences are different in part because of the circumstances. I much prefer running for mayor, though, because I see my family every morning and night. The food is better, just like right around in the subway and hang out here in New York as opposed to heading to the Midwest and other parts of the country. So, yeah, New York City, again, another reason to run for mayor.
Andrew, we throw around the idea is New York back? And when is New York going to be back? New York's not back yet. But what are some of the benchmarks that you are going to need to see or that you want to see where you would be able to definitively say New York is back?
I'm a numbers guy. Maybe it's one reason I like sports. I would redefine whether we're back by whether our schools are open and full of kids, our office buildings are open and full of workers, our restaurants and bars and hotels are open and full of people visiting New York City. The reality is that 300,000 of the approximately 500,000 jobs we're missing right now are in restaurants, bars, hotels, tour bus operators, food trucks, people that rely upon folks coming to New York City and enjoying themselves and working every day. And right now, a lot of those people are not showing up for a host of reasons, but one reason is that it doesn't feel safe. So it all, again, just circles back to safety being the key to it all. But I'm going to know we're back when the numbers say we're back. Maggie, the numbers show we've got a long way to go.
Andrew, you grew up, you're a Met fan as well, right? So
yes, first place. I know it hasn't been great, but we're in first place.
in first place. Before we get your thoughts on the Met team, I want to ask you about another former Met who's also running for political office. What advice would you give Bobby Valentine, who's running for mayor of Stamford?
Just don't put on the disguise. Just don't put on the glasses and the nose and the mustache.
That works actually on a lot of levels. That'd be kind of interesting. Okay, so Mets, Andrew, I got to be honest, we saw the video of you shooting hoops.
Okay. What are you saying, Maggie? What are you saying?
I'm trailing off there because
silence says it all, Andrew. The silence
says
it all.
Sir. I'm being kind, sir. Now, this is the thing, right? But you're not running to be president and point guard of the Knicks, so that's okay. You're shooting hoops. If you were to win the mayoral election, imagine they're going to invite you, massive Mets fans, to throw out a first pitch. What can we expect there?
I can't wait to throw out a ceremonial first pitch. I certainly haven't wound up and and tried to throw a strike in a while, but it'd be such a blast. My family would be there. My boys would see Dad go out to the mound. Yeah, I have a lot of confidence. I would, get it across the plate. Very exciting. Again, another reason I'm so pumped to become mayor is that we're going to have some fun at Citi Field.
Andrew, I have just kind of an off the beat question. You're a huge sports fan, right? We've been talking about the Nets, the Knicks, a little bit of Mets here for the last 14, 15 minutes. There's a lot of politicians out there that when they try and talk sports, like they just can't do it, right? So Maggie and I, we had an idea of starting up an advisory role for politicians across the country to where we can get politicians prepared
right.
to be able to talk about sports when they are put in the uncomfortable spot of having to talk about sports. You think there's that role there? Do politicians have people in their advisory committee already for that role?
There is definitely a need for this. You can come up with a catchy name like, Moose and Maggie sports fan training.
It's a 12-step program. Yeah. We plan on making a lot of money.
And then just charge a lot of money, and some campaign will throw the money at you because unfortunately, that's the way some of these campaigns go.
Well, we're going to leave fan now, so thank you, Andrew. No, my last question for you, and I appreciate your time. We know this is an extremely busy time of year for you. Right now, the biggest challenge facing New York coming out of the pandemic, in your mind, is what?
It is making us all feel safe when we walk the streets, ride the subways, improving our quality of life, trash, homelessness, to a point where we just feel good about the city. If we feel good about the city, then other people will feel good about the city. People will come visit. Our economy will be back on track. It all starts, though, with making our streets safe.
Andrew, last one. Mets fandom, they're in first place. Hasn't looked particularly pretty. You think this team is you look at the Nets, they can win an NBA championship this year. You look at this Mets team, where do you think the potential is for this Mets team this year?
I feel really good about this year because I think the upside is still there. I mean, the team hasn't been very healthy. Just got to make the playoffs. And then if everyone's clicking, I mean, you can see DeGrom in a playoff series, gives you a chance to win 2 games. Freaking Taijuan Walker, lights out. Stroman. I mean, it's a pretty good playoff rotation, even with Syndergaard getting hurt again. So you feel like this team could contend. It's one reason I know you look up and you're like, Lindor's not hitting and the rest of it. But this team is on track to make the playoffs and can beat anybody because the talent is there.
Andrew,
fantastic. Thank you.
Good luck in the race, and we appreciate the time this morning.
Thanks all. Get out there and vote. Voting starts June 12th. Thank you all. Let's go New York City.
There you go.
All right, that was Andrew Yang. He's running for mayor of New York City. Of course, the primary, early voting is open. June 22nd is primary day. And then, of course, the general election, will be November 2nd.